Diane, 11:30 a.m., February 24th. Entering the town of Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks. Coffee, cherry pie, trees, diners, memorable characters, and just cozy vibes. Electricity, doorknobs, mirrors, horrors beyond imagining. Twin Peaks. Stop trying to explain it. Okay, that's a pretty strong stance, so let's back up a bit. Twin Peaks was created in 1990 by David Lynch and Mark Frost. It's about the small town of Twin Peaks where a prom queen gets murdered and an FBI agent comes into town to solve the case. From the beginning, it was a show of multitudes, blending together soap opera drama with crime mysteries and slapstick humor with a dash of surrealism. Basically, it was a David Lynch project. And if you know anything about David Lynch, you know he's not a fan of explaining the meaning behind his art.
Believe it or not, Eraserhead is my most spiritual film.
Elaborate on that.
No, I won't.
For Lynch, the art is supposed to speak for itself. Whatever his intentions were don't matter anymore. It means to him whatever it means to him, and it can mean something completely different to somebody else. And that is no different with Twin Peaks. But of course, with Twin Peaks, you have a lot of material to go through. You have 3 seasons of TV, a movie, and 90 minutes of deleted scenes, which are actually canon and very important. And even a few books, like The Secret History of Twin Peaks or The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer. So, a lot of secrets. With so much material, you would think that you could find answers, so I can't exactly blame anyone for thinking that they could explain Twin Peaks. But what do I mean when I say, stop trying to explain Twin Peaks? The best way to explain that is for me to tell you about my experience with Twin Peaks and why it means so much to me. I watched Twin Peaks at the beginning of 2017 at the suggestion of a friend. I had bought the complete mystery box set some time ago already, but never watched it. My friend told me that the show was actually coming back in the summer, so I figured, well, what better time to start watching? Already from the pilot, I was hooked. The town with all of its quirky residents, the unique vibe,
Oh, it fell down.
and the darkness seeping underneath the American dream drew me in instantly. And don't even get me started on the amazing music by Angelo Badalamenti. I had not seen anything like it before. I mean, it was the first thing I had ever seen from Lynch in general, so it really was something different. For the next few weeks, whenever I was watching something, it was Twin Peaks. It was one of the funniest shows I had ever seen, as well as the scariest. I still maintain that Twin Peaks is the scariest thing I've ever watched. Some of the moments from the TV show and movie will haunt me forever in a way that nothing else has. Eventually, I reached the end of season 2 and I could not believe what I had just watched. It's hard to even imagine it being aired on network television in 1991. Left with so many unanswered questions, the show was sadly cancelled. A year later, David Lynch made the Twin Peaks film Fire Walk with Me, but it was a prequel, so how much more closure could that bring? None. Absolutely none. It honestly raised more questions than answers. Fire Walk with Me is a harrowing experience to say the least, stripped from all of the cozy vibes the original show had and really focusing on the dark and weird side of the show. It's also an incredibly beautiful film, which makes you really sympathize with Laura Palmer in a way that the original show never did. Rewatching the show after watching the movie is a completely different experience, as after that I was much more tuned into the emotions of the story and the characters, and there was a lot of those to go around. After all of that, I knew that Twin Peaks was something special and that I had found a new favorite show. But all of that would amplify even more as I anxiously started to wait for the return, to see how the show would be after all of these years and get some answers to all of the burning questions left from the show and movie. As I said before, Twin Peaks was still my first exposure to David Lynch, so I really had no idea what was coming for me. Week after week, I watched as the return unfolded. The weirdness dialed up to 12. A whole bunch of new characters and much less of the titular town than anyone could have expected. Week after week, I theorized with my friend what the hell was going on, especially in part 8. The summer went by and all I could think about was Twin Peaks. Every week just anxiously waiting for that next episode. Until finally we arrived at the last 2 episodes. Okay, now I'm going to discuss the ending of the show, so here's timecode below if you want to skip all of that. But no worries, you won't have the full context, so you really won't understand what's going on there anyway, because even if you have seen the show, you probably don't understand it either. So, the last 2 episodes. I went to watch them at my friend's place. I was so excited. Finally, we're going to get to the final showdown and get some answers. And at first, that is what happened. We were only halfway done with episode 17, still one more to go after that. And then something happens? Nothing happens? Who even knows? After an excruciatingly long and slow final episode, we get to the last moments of the show. Maybe, just maybe we can get some answers.
What year is this?
I sat in disbelief as the credits rolled. The show had ended on less than nothing. Like, I was actually angry. I drove home angry that night. In the morning after waking up, I was still feeling betrayed. So I went online searching for answers. And I saw that people were saying that you're actually supposed to watch the episodes side by side. So I did that. And I felt like it made sense. Some of the things really lined up perfectly. For example, how the cowboy drops his gun at the same time the owl ring falls, or how Naido and Diane sync up, just to name a few. Then, of course, the producer Sabrina Sutherland came out and said that the idea of simultaneously watching the last 2 episodes is completely ridiculous. Nevertheless, rewatching those last 2 episodes with a very specific intention did put me at ease. I didn't feel cheated anymore. I slowly started to understand it, at least to the extent that anyone can. From that point on, Twin Peaks really seeped into my consciousness, even more so than before. For at least the next 2 years, I thought about Twin Peaks on a daily basis. I read all kinds of wild theories online, agreeing with some of them and disagreeing with others, but the most enjoyable thing was seeing all the various little connections and details people found on rewatches. They made the world of the show feel so much more alive, and that there really was a grand design at play. It wasn't all just weird for the sake of being weird. David Lynch and Mark Frost knew what it all meant, and they had left us a plethora of clues to figure it all out, or to at least try. So, after all of this, what exactly do I mean when I say, stop trying to explain Twin Peaks? After all, I just spent like 5 minutes telling you about how much I like theorizing about Twin Peaks and reading other people's ideas and theories. I don't really mean that people should stop analyzing Twin Peaks. I mean, that's honestly a huge part of why it has been my favorite for the past 8 years. I love all the various theories people have put out there, even if sometimes they really are just grasping at straws and really overanalyzing everything. It's half the fun. What I mean is, stop trying to claim that you have solved Twin Peaks. There is a somewhat infamous 4.5-hour video called Twin Peaks Explained, no, really, that claims to have figured it all out. And no, they didn't. Claiming to have an all-around explanation for Twin Peaks is like saying that you know for certain if there's a cat in this box or not. As I said before, Twin Peaks contains multitudes. It has themes of love and the horrors of humanity. It's about how we process trauma and how people can change or stay the same. It's a meta-commentary on the nature of television, as well as how a good piece of pie and a hot cup of coffee is all we really need to achieve world peace. And maybe most crucially, about how we don't always have the answers. What's more important with Twin Peaks than all the answers is how it makes you feel. Twin Peaks has absolutely immaculate vibes, and I do mean vibes, plural. It runs the gamut of making the viewer go through basically every emotion you can feel while watching something. So sometimes it's good to just watch and let your emotions guide you, instead of just trying to analyze every single detail. David Lynch was always annoyed that they were forced into answering the show's central question early on in season 2. Let's say you have a goose and the goose lays golden eggs. It's a beautiful thing. The goose is laying these little golden eggs and pretty soon you've got a lot of golden eggs. It was like we had a little goose that kept laying golden eggs and then we were asked to take that little goose and snip its head off. With the return, Lynch and Frost were finally able to put the goose's head back in, as now the mystery of Twin Peaks will forever continue. And as we surely will continue analyzing Twin Peaks for years to come, just remember, stop trying to explain Twin Peaks and just feel it. And join me next time as I explain why you should start trying to explain Full House.